Hey guys, and welcome to another Walk-In Wednesday. Today, I had a gun walk in and I was thinking I should show it to you, but it is so different than what you normally see that it made me think I should do a video just on different Walther PPs and PPKs. I usually do educational video about a variation, but in this case, many times there's only one or two of these known, and so I thought I'd bring them out of the safe and show them to you today. So what started me on this path of this particular video was this 22 caliber box. Now, usually by now, most of you recognize the wartime box. Post-war had an alligator darker brown, alligator finish darker brown. But the wartime box you've now grown to recognize, having watched so many of my videos. And you see this is in 22 caliber. But when we open it up, we're going to find out what makes this 22 caliber different. Now the 22, one of the things you'll notice right away, it has a zigzag end on the rod, and it's a brass rod. The other ones are just a dull blued rod. So the 22 caliber rod is actually a little bit different. The manual is the same, but the gun itself is what is really different. This is actually a factory variation. I've only seen a couple. And actually one of our subscribers, somebody who watches regularly, said, have you ever seen one with the wooden grips? This is not a post-war alteration. This was a factory original option that shows up in the Walther catalog. You can see this as an option, but evidently not too many people ordered it. You can see the 22 caliber, and this gun is in fantastic condition. You see the fire blue on the safety. You can see the high polished bluing, the grip straps, just phenomenal. As you look at the grip strap, you can also see that it's crown end, so it's early. Let's see, it's 990 serial range. So I think that puts it around 1935, 1936. But let's take a closer look at this grip. It adds an extension, which helps with the grip. If you take a look at my grip on that, it just extends a little bit further to cover up to handle my pinky finger, but it doesn't extend the magazine rounds. So when you take this off, you can see that it's just a regular 22 caliber magazine, but it does have a wooden finger extension. And I'm going to say this is a walnut, checkered walnut. So just a beautiful gun from 1938. I think earlier I said 1936, but actually I just looked it up, and it is from 1938. Still has the beautiful finish, crown end, and this, as I said, is a factory option. And if we look inside, we talked about the box having a pink inside. This is a faded pink. The serial number is written there. I'm sure somebody just wrote that in there. It does have a spare magazine with the wood bottom. There's the tin, and this actually does have the dummy rounds. You can see the holes in the dummy rounds. So these, I believe, are original dummy rounds. And then here's the spare magazine. Again, you can see it. It's a early magazine with a wood bottom. Has two screws to hold it all together. But speaking of 22 calibers, I have a couple more I want to show you that are quite unusual. So here's the next 22 I wanted to show you. This one comes out of the safe. This is, you remember the round labels, and they were pencil numbered. If I look at the later ones, they had it printed, which makes it a lot harder to fake. That's what they had through most of the war, pre-war and wartime. But this is an early one, so it has the oval. It's in green because it's 22 caliber. The serial number is just marked in with a pencil. But what makes this one unusual, 22 caliber, again, beautiful condition. Doesn't have the wooden finger extension, but it does have the Bakelite extension, 22 caliber. And here's what makes this one unusual. You'll see made in Germany. You can see it says made in Germany. So this was made specifically for export to the United States. And it has the same tin, it has a spare mag, but what makes this one really rare is it has this manual, which you've seen before. This one is dated 1937, and it is printed in English. Pretty much every other manual that I have is written in German. This one is printed in English. So we know that this gun was made to be exported to the United States in about 1937. And then one other 22 caliber I want to show you. This time it's a PPK. You can tell right away because of the brown one-piece grip and a little bit shorter here and here. 22 caliber, and you'll see Allemagne. You can see Allemagne written on there. For those of you who speak French, that is the French word for Germany. So export to France, export to the United States, and normally there's no markings on there, so they would be used in Germany or sold in other countries. Switzerland was a big buyer, Sweden, and some other countries bought Walthers, very popular in other countries throughout Europe. But the ones that are specially made for the United States would be made in Germany, France, marked with Allemagne. So one other gun that I just pulled out of the safe. This is because this is a later box. All the boxes you've seen, we mentioned before, boxes look like this. Sometimes it has a bow tie label in red. Sometimes it has this green label with a serial number. But here's one that is from the war era. And so they were cutting costs. And if you could feel the flimsiness, it's just a very cheap cardboard box. And now there's no logo on the front. It just has the label, the green label. It has the serial number of the gun on the side. But you can see that this box is rarely seen. And the reason is it's so flimsy that I would imagine as soon as you got it, you would throw the box away. It's fallen apart, just a very flimsy box. If we look at the contents of the box, you can see that the tin is just the Walther banner. Remember the other tin? Let's take a look at the other tin and compare them. The earlier tin has the Walther logo, but also a factory picture. This is just, again, very simple. All it has is the Walther logo, so it's a simpler design. The manuals that we're used to, again, most of your box guns came from the wartime period. This one is what you're used to seeing. This is a later manual, and it's a lot simpler because there's not very many pages. It just folds open like this. And this one is actually dated January of 1943. So this is a wartime gun, and again, they were cutting costs, and probably a lot of the ones that went to the Luftwaffe or the police just went in crates. This one was sold privately, probably to a Nazi official or an officer. Remember when I took you on the time machine, I said, this is Doctor Who, and he went back in time in a phone booth? I must have had 12,000 Brits write to me and say, it's not a phone booth. And in big, bold letters, it was a police box. Who knew? Looked like a phone booth to me. I stand corrected. It's a police box. Doctor Who went back in time. We go back in time to 1943 and take a look at this. So this is the gun that came in this box. And again, it's a wartime gun, 1943. And just take a look at this finish. This gun, the finish, if we take a look at it now, this late in the war, they do number them on the frame and the slide. It has the eagle end proofs. You can see that on the slide and the ejection port. And just so you're aware, right on the end of the barrel, pull the slide back on the end of the barrel, you can see one more proof mark. And this gun, it looks like it was this is what it looked like when it came out of the factory. The magazine will be Walther banner with the caliber. On the frame, you can still see the milling marks. Earlier, they would have polished the milling marks out of this gun, but here you can see the milling marks and the beauty of the finish. This is no longer a high polish finish. This would be a salt blue, which is a much cheaper process, also wears off very quickly. The first place it's going to wear off is on the front strap. Usually you'll see these in a very light gray. This one is still dark, so hardly used. Actually, one more test. Pull the magazine out. I do see they did have rounds chambered in this gun. On a brand new one, you won't even see a mark where the bullet was chambered into the magazine. So this is a like brand new gun that came in a box that is so flimsy. If this hadn't been sitting in a safe somewhere, I'm sure it would be just totally destroyed by now. As a matter of fact, in most, even just kept in a household drawer, it would get, I would assume that it would get insects that would chew it up or mice or something because this cardboard is just so flimsy. So a phenomenal find from 1943. Now I have one more very unusual, one-of-a-kind gun I want to show you. I think you'll really like. So the last one I wanted to show you, it's actually a 9mm that's behind me, but here's a standard 9mm. When I say standard, that's a stretch because the 9mm PPK and PP are pretty rare guns. You know, more than 90% were made in 7.65, and then next was 22 caliber, and then one of the rarest is the 9mm, followed only by the 25 caliber because there was only maybe a dozen or so of those. But on the 9mm, you can see that they always have a bottom release magazine, not the push button. You know how the push button is right here? 9mm in PP and PPK have the bottom release. There's a little cutout in the grip, and this is marked 9mm. There's also no cutout right here. There's no cutout for the button because there's no need for a cutout. It's bottom release, and the story has always been told that when they first experimented with these guns, they did make them with the push button, but they found that drilling a hole into the frame actually weakened the frame enough, and then when you shoot this gun, there's enough kick and vibration that it would cause little stress fractures after you put many, many rounds through it. And by the way, as an aside, I just sent a 9mm PPK to Ian at Forgotten Weapons to have him go out and test fire it because I said, hey, check it out. Tell me if there really is a lot of kick and reverberation or kickback on this thing, because they said because of the 9mm being a more powerful round, it weakened the frame to put the push button in there. So, therefore, whenever you see a 9mm PP or PPK, it has this bottom release magazine. Until today, because today I'm going to show you a push button 9mm. You see the serial number here is 802,000. That's from 1933. They started making the PPK in 1931, or about 1931. So they hadn't even made them in 9mm until 1933, and this has to be one of the first ones made. If you look at the logo, you can see that they did the standard logo, but they didn't even have a stencil for 9mm. And by the way, you'll see the same thing with the 25 caliber. So they just inscribed, you can see the difference. They would inscribe in here 9mm. And in the case of the 25 caliber, they were so rare, they didn't even have a stencil for the 9mm that early. Also, you'll see Germany, and that tells me this was made for export, probably to the United States, and it must have been a special order. And you see the push button right here. So 9mm push button, and when you push the button, you get a 9mm magazine. And you'll notice it does have the notch. It came with two magazines, by the way. Both of these magazines are notched. When I look under magnification, I can see that they're crudely cut. The one on the right is a little more crudely cut. This could have been factory, but this definitely was not. So basically, when they needed a spare mag, somebody just got a 9mm magazine and they crudely cut a notch into it. But it seems to work quite effectively. So I like this design a lot more, but evidently it wasn't strong enough to maintain the integrity of the metal. So they switched it to the bottom release. Just to see the difference in design, the bottom release allowed the frame to be a little bit stronger. And just for your information, this is from 1937, and this one, the push button one, was from 1933. So early, I'm sure, experimental PPK. Very, very rare. When I bought this at an auction, the estimate was $1,500. And I knew that it wouldn't sell for that, but I also knew they had no idea what they were just assuming it was a normal PPK. $1,500 would have been price for a normal PPK. This one went for close to $5,000, and well worth it because of its rarity. I've only seen one in my life. I do know a collector in California who said that he has owned a couple of the push button 9mm. Nonetheless, very, very rare. I like for this video series to be interactive, so if you have one or if you've seen one, let us know. Thanks for watching, and make sure you like and subscribe to our video. More importantly, why don't you forward it to a friend or a fellow collector? I actually, this past weekend, met a history teacher, does not collect guns, and I was telling him a little bit about our YouTube channel, and as a history teacher, he just fell in love with the videos. So you never know who's going to turn out to like this. Thanks again for watching.